Hello, I'm Kyle, and this is Give Pause Hobby, the channel where I stop to appreciate the things I love to fill my free time with. For today, we're talking about the Hirelings and the landmarks for Root, but with conjunction with the ROOTbots, because I'm a mad scientist when it comes to my favorite game, and if you are following or watching this channel, there's a good chance you at least partially are too. So thanks for coming along for the ride with me. Now this is not anywhere close to an official solution, like a published Leader Games version. And it's actually not even, it's under the Winding the Gears moniker, which has typically been my shorthand for I'm talking about the Better Bot Project. This isn't even sanctioned like a Better Bot Project joint. This was by a community member, Ehss, E-H-S-S, who I ran into over on the Woodland Warriors Discord server. And there's been a couple of versions of how to implement Root's newest mechanic, these Hirelings, with the ROOTbots. And this one really stuck out to me because, to be honest, Ehss did an amazing job putting this new text, the ROOTbot friendly text, onto what looks like really official things you can print out and you can use. I'll get right to it though. In case you are intending to P&P it yourself, I would just make sure you don't make the same mistake I do. Because the Hireling cards are these nice big tarot-sized cards and really easy to read. If you do not resize these bot Hireling cards, it's this like joke-sized card here. Now this is not their fault. This is entirely my fault because I looked at it and I said, wow, that's a bunch of cards. They fit into one JPEG at a time. I really need to make sure that I resize those, that I duplicate that, and I crop out those things to allow them to be bigger. I thought that, and then I totally forgot to do it, and so now I have these teeny tiny cards. Now the for the landmarks, these are actually pretty close. So here's the regular landmark, normal card size, and here's what I did. So I was able to fit all 6 of them onto one page, and that's just fine. So I don't know. We'll see how. I think my plan is to still use these teeny tiny cards for now because, like I said, these are the furthest thing from like a final solution. So there very well might be adjustments later on. So I don't necessarily want to spend the money to go redo them right away. For the Hirelings, I've gone through and I've made little markings to help my failing eyesight here in my advanced age. I can read the normal script, the normal text pretty well, but the italics that they print the tiebreakers in does not print super well at this minuscule size. So I found that I came up with a pretty workable shorthand, which is just an up or a down arrow for most or least or highest or lowest, and then B is buildings, T is tokens, B plus T is buildings and tokens, P is pieces, W is warriors, V is victory points. And all of these, for the most part, are referring to enemy, buildings, tokens, warriors, whatever. On some of these factions or Hirelings, they are specifically referring to your, if I was playing them, my pieces, my buildings, or put it in a clearing with the most of your tokens or pieces, whatever. And for that, I put a Y in there. So, arrow up arrow YW would be the most number of my warriors. That way, when I get to the tiebreaker stuff, it's a little bit faster to get through. So, but anyways, besides that, I went through all of the different hirelings on both sides. I'll go promoted and demoted for each of them, and they each fall into one of three categories. One, which I think is the rarest, which is the regular printed, like human version, is just totally different from what the bots use, like completely different rules. And I put like an open circle and a filled in circle. So like these are dissimilar things. One is that they are the exact same, that the exact wording on the human version is the exact wording on the bot one, and I put 2 open circles for that. That is also pretty rare. I don't think quite as rare as the ones that are just totally different rules. The vast majority of these, I have an open circle and then a half filled in circle because it's almost the same rule, but with a little bit of extra wording. And 9 times out of 10, that the only new words in there are just referring to how you break ties for choosing a clearing, choosing a player, that sort of stuff. So the rule pretty much holds consistent, but what I like about Ess's system here is that this is all pretty much contained on these cards. You know, you don't have to have like a bot workings card and then the actual hirelings cards themselves. Again, says version 1.0, that lots of things go beyond 1.0 in their version histories in board games and other things. So I'm not saying that this is going to be the final version. So this might not be how it works down the road. The only thing that isn't contained in these cards is some overall stuff about how they choose their bot and that sort of stuff, which I've played with these, and I swear I read it somewhere, and I cannot for the life of me find it again on Discord, but I want to say that it was just choosing randomly, so you roll the dice to choose between the available hirelings, if that's what they're doing, or if the bot is done with its hirelings and it's choosing which player to go to, just kind of either giving it to the last place person in victory point track, rolling a die and randomizing it, or I've seen a couple versions of something in between there where it's not completely deterministic of like, well, whoever's in last place, and it's not totally random of rolling a die, but it's something that's in between where it says it's going to be randomized, but it's weighting the results towards the lower your victory point total, the more likely you are to get the bots. For what it's worth, Benjamin Schmaus has weighed in saying from what he's read and seen, hasn't experienced playing with the hirelings yet, but he seems to think that it's, you know, when this becomes part of Clockwork 3 and before that, you know, the new content for Better Bot Project, it seems like his standard system is just going to say whenever the bot's done with the hireling, it's going to go to the player with the lowest victory points. That's the least amount of bookkeeping. It's the simplest. And I mean, I wouldn't say 9 times out of 10, but a pretty high majority of the time, that's what players are looking at too. All right, so spoiler, this is Kyle from the slightly not as far in the past future. No, slightly not as far in the past. There it is. I'm future Kyle according to the Kyle you've been seeing so far. Anyways, I did confirm with Ehss that in terms of how the hirelings are chosen by the ROOTbots is indeed random. And whenever the hirelings are done, whenever the ROOTbots are done with their hirelings, they will always pass them down to the last place person. Again, there may be, there are other ways you can do it, whether totally random or something that goes in between deterministic last place and total randomness. But for right now, this is the intent that Ehss had for these, is to just send them to the last place person and randomly choose which ones you want, even if there would be some that you would be like, wow, this would be the perfect hireling to help out the ROOTbot. I guess you could always do that if you want to give a little bit more life and intelligence, like a seeming intelligence to your opponents. But by rules is just random. You are going to see me in this outfit because this is a different day of filming every so often because I did not talk about the setup rules, which are ever so slightly different on most of the hirelings. So I'm just going to pop in every so often to let you know. So with that, we'll get back to past Kyle and move on with the hirelings. So a note about setup. Remember, when you are in your little pamphlet that comes with your hireling stuff, at the beginning of the game, the hireling setup, you're going to get all the pieces, deal out the hirelings, demote the ones you need to depending on the player count, and then starting with the last player in turn order and going counterclockwise, the players each set up one hireling as described. So when you're playing with any of the hirelings and the bots, you should have both versions of the hirelings handy. So you should have Sunward Expedition and the printout, hopefully not as tiny as these. So depending on if I'm last player playing and I want to set up the Sunward Expedition, I'm going to use what's on the card. If the bot is the last thing playing and then they randomly choose, roll a die, and they get Sunward Expedition, they're going to use the setup that's right here on their version of the card. So again, the hireling, the bot version of the hirelings are in addition to the regular ones, as opposed to the landmarks, which after you've read the setup rules, you can just keep out the other P&P landmarks because they have the human rules and the bot rules right on the same side. Pretty simple. So we're going to go through, talk about the actual human card, and then we'll run down what is different about these cards. So the nice part, I mean, this is a mistake, this tiny card thing, but the nice part is if I were to have Forest Patrol in the game, for instance, I could just have this like nested next to it. It's kind of nice, but honestly, I would rather have thought about this and fixed it. So they're the same size, and I would just put the bot one underneath it. If I had control of Forest Patrol, so I can read my stuff, and if the bot has control, I'd put this on top. Because unlike the landmarks, there's not enough room on these cards to have the text for what a human does with them, and what a bot does. So they're one or the other. Which is totally fine. And for me, I just have this like dinky card. It's like take your child to work day, but in Root. So Forest Patrol. All right, for setup for the Forest Patrol, this one is indeed exactly the same, but I figured I'd break the seal as soon as I could and talk about setup because I kind of forgot about it before. So place a Forest Patrol warrior in each clearing. Simple. There's no hemming and hawing with that one. It's just do the same thing as before. Whenever any patrol warriors are removed, place one of them on this card, not in the supply. And once per day, you may move, then you may battle, or place all patrol warriors from here into a clearing with any patrol warriors. So, same thing, if the Forest Patrol are removed, they're going to go on this card, hopefully not this one because it's tiny. Then once per day, if there are at least 3 patrol warriors on this card, place them all in a clearing with other patrol warriors. Highest buildings and tokens, and then pieces of the enemy with the highest victory points. Otherwise, move all but 3 Forest patrol warriors from the clearing with the most patrol warriors to an adjacent clearing. If unable, move from the clearing with the least patrol warriors to an adjacent clearing with a patrol warrior. Battle in the clearing with the most patrol warriors. Destination tie, most points. Defender tie, most pieces, and then most victory points. If you flip it over for demoted side, it's same thing but different. Human version, whenever any of your faction warriors are removed, you may spend a card matching their clearing to place those warriors in a clearing with your faction pieces instead of your supply. For the bots, after each battle as defender, where you lose at least 2 warriors, place 1 warrior in a clearing with your faction pieces instead of the supply. So it just always happens. You don't have to spend any cards. Clearing tie, most buildings and tokens, and then most pieces. So most of your buildings and tokens, and then most enemy pieces. Last Dynasty is up next. So our Angry Birds. All right, for the last Dynasty setup, it's almost the same, and you're going to see this, I talk about it later in the video, pretty regularly, and that's whenever something talks about a nebulous, like any clearing or choose a clearing or whatever, a lot of times it's just going to be randomized. So the bot version, place all 5 Dynasty warriors in a random clearing on the map edge. Once per day, if no Dynasty warriors are on the map, place all 5 Dynasty warriors in any edge clearing and battle there. Or if they rule their clearing, move all warriors and then battle with them if able. All right, this is Kyle from the future and the past at the same time. I'm not going to read the human version of all the factions because otherwise it's just going to take too long. If you already have the Hirelings, you're probably somewhat familiar with them, in which case you can haul them out and you can compare them. I will let you know if it is the same text, if it's totally different, or if it's the same but slightly adjusted. And if you don't have the Hirelings and you're figuring this out, then it doesn't really matter because this is the only version that you're going to be using. So with that, let's check out this card. So the last Dynasty, if no Dynasty warriors are on the map, place all 5 warriors in any edge clearing and battle there. So clearing tie, most enemy pieces, defender tie, most enemy buildings and tokens, then most enemy warriors. If they rule their clearing, move all the warriors and then battle with them if able. And destination tie is going to be most enemy buildings and tokens, then most pieces, and then lowest priority. Defender tie is going to be most buildings and tokens, and then most warriors. If they do not rule their clearing, they're going to battle there twice. Defender tie, same thing, most enemy buildings or tokens, and then most enemy warriors. On the back side is the Bluebird Nobles, which is exactly the same as the human card version. You rule clearings when tied for presence, and once per turn, or at the beginning of your turn, score 1 point for every 3 clearings you rule. Simple. Next up is Spring Uprising, which is pretty much the same in spirit with slightly different wording. Setup's going to say, roll the Uprising die twice and place an Uprising warrior in a random matching clearing. So unless there's something weird like the Lost City in play, how I would do this is assign the 4 clearings of whatever suit you roll, 0 through 3 on the battle die, and then you have a 4-sided die, even though it's technically 12. Wink. So when you take control, if no Uprising warriors are on the map, roll the Uprising die and place an Uprising warrior in a matching clearing. Clearing tie, most enemy pieces. And then to battle the Uprising, the attackers must discard a card matching the battle clearing. However, bots suffer no penalties. Then, at the beginning of your turn, roll the Uprising die and remove an Uprising warrior and all enemy pieces from a matching clearing. Clearing tie, most enemy pieces. If unable, place an Uprising warrior in a matching clearing. Clearing tie, most enemy pieces. So, same feel, just been botified. On the back, Rabbit Scouts, same thing, botified rules. Controller, as defender in your first battle on your turn, use the higher roll and make the attacker use the lower roll. You do not have to spend the card to make that happen. Aside from that, it's the exact same effect as on the human version. Moving on, we have the Exile, which both the promoted and demoted side are botified rules. All right, for the Exile, you're going to put the Exile pawn in any forest connected to the most clearings. Now, it should say also put 3 club items on here. That's on the regular card and just didn't fit, or there's a lot of text on this one, so put the 3 clubs there, otherwise it's going to start the game real slow. So that was a misprint, probably be taken care of on a future version. all the time. At any time in their turn, a player with faction pieces adjacent to the Exile may place an item from their crafted items box on this card to draw a card and score a point. Bots don't draw a card and instead score 2 points and can only do this action once per turn. Then, once per turn. If in a forest not adjacent to an enemy piece, move to an adjacent forest that is and exhaust an item. Battle in an adjacent clearing with the most enemy pieces, exhausting 2 items per battle. Repeat this whole step until you do not have enough items to exhaust. Defender tie, most pieces and then most victory points. Forest tie, forest adjacent to clearing with the most enemy pieces. If you can, exhaust an item to move to a forest surrounded by more enemy pieces. Refresh all items here. In battle, you can roll hits up to the number of items here. For each hit taken, exhaust 1 item or remove 1 if you can't exhaust any. So, again, pretty much rules on there just for how the bot would implement it. Aside from that, it's the same thing. Just the same goes for the Brigand on the back. Controller, once per turn. As soon as you're able to on your turn, take an item from a ruin in a clearing with your faction pieces. If you took the last item in the ruin, remove the ruin. So that's the same. Then, once per turn, as soon as you're able on your turn, exhaust an item in your crafted items box to discard a random card from an enemy player with pieces in any of your clearings. Score 1 point. Player tie, player with the most victory points. Again, the only change there is that you aren't actually taking that card, you are just having them discard it, and then they are... or you're gaining a victory point because that's the standard bot rules for that. All right, for the Warm Sun Prophets, for the setup, I'm going to place a Prophet Warrior in each clearing with a ruin. That one's the same as the regular version of the Hireling, but I figure it's worth pointing out even when it is. This is bottified rules on this side. Hint, dun dun dun, when you can take control. If no Prophet Warriors are on the map, place Prophet Warriors in the clearing with the most enemy pieces and then the lowest priority. Once per turn. In a clearing with a Prophet Warrior and 2 other enemy factions, have 2 enemies battle each other. Attack has the least warriors and defender has the most. If unable, have the player with the most pieces there move to an adjacent clearing with the most pieces of another enemy faction and have them both battle. If unable, place a Prophet Warrior in the clearing with the most enemy pieces. Destination, lowest priority. Okay, so same kind of spirit, but just rules that the bots can handle. However, Lizard Envoys on the back is a completely different card. So for humans, you can search the discard pile for, of the most common suit and take a card that is not an ambush. So birds are their own suit. You can't count them as other suits, and you decide ties. So you're going through the garbage and you're picking what you want to take back into the world. Again, not ambush. The bots, however, at the start of their turn, search the top 5 cards in the discard pile. Treat search as if you use the advanced service to Riverfolk market, with exception for Riverfolk, who treat it as a basic service. Eligible cards are cards of the most common suit. Lizard Envoy takes precedence over buying from Riverfolk market. So, this is really interesting because you are going to be... this is going to be replacing the card that you would otherwise get from the deck randomly. It also supersedes you purchasing a card from the Riverfolk. So even if the Riverfolk are in the game and Lizard Envoys are in the game, this will go first because you're not going to have to pay for it. So why do the thing that's going to cost you warriors when you can do the thing that won't? You're going to look through and look for your advanced services, which is to say, check to see if there's a card that you would specifically want. Some factions really want, an item card would be good, but they're also really looking for a bird card or not looking for a bird card or whatever it may be. So you use that. There's also the basic services to fall back on, or like in the case of Riverfolk that don't have advanced buying services, just to see, and it's typically, you know, something that has an item. It's a very simple, the bots want to get those free, easy points. So again, totally different, like, it's not just bodified rules, it's just a totally different version of the card, so the bots can actually make the most use of it. I'm going to do some video magic because I can't film anymore today. So next time you see me, I'm going to be in a different outfit. 3, 2, 1. And here I am. So let's keep going with the video. So with the otters and the Riverfolk Flotilla, place the flotilla pawn in a random clearing on the map edge and river. Now, for something like the lake, where you don't have anything touching the map edge, just randomize it. And remember, river and body of water are interchangeable because there weren't any lakes on the maps when they first started. They're just rivers. So, still same rules that it can do up to 3 hits and all that sort of stuff. But then once at the beginning of the bot's turn, each human player with a faction piece at the flotilla may draw a card, and each bot there scores 1 victory point. Now again, if that doesn't need to be written on there, that's part of the ROOTbot rules. So if you are a human player and you're just reading off of the big card rather than the little baby card, when all players would draw a card, the bots would just gain a victory point instead. So this is just extra. However, second up, move the flotilla along the river, ignoring rule, then battle there. So destination tie, most defenseless buildings, and then most enemy warriors, then defender tie, most warriors, and most victory points. So again, just ways to kind of decide where that action is going to happen. On the back, Otter Divers, this is one of the small number of oh my goodness. I'm so sorry if you thought, well, at least it's halfway through this video, he's going to be done yawning. I got bad news for you. It's a new morning, so I got a whole new barrel full of yawns. So Otter Divers works exactly like the regular version. It is, they just ignore a rule when moving to or from a clearing on the river. Boom. Exactly the same. And there you go. Now, I will say that is unfortunately the incorrect way that I have accidentally played the bots, usually not for full games, but just from time to time, where I just forget about rule because I'm so focused on what's exactly on their faction board that I forget that sometimes those basic rules exist too. So sometimes I've been playing on Otter Divers by accident, but here's a way for them to have it legitimately. All right, next up, the moles with the Sunward Expedition. Set up, place a foothold token and 3 expedition warriors in a random clearing. So again, instead of any, just replace the word any with random, and there you have it. So once per turn, place a foothold token and up to 5 expedition warriors in a clearing with no foothold. If you don't have any more, you're going to move the foothold in the clearing with the fewest expedition warriors to the target clearing. There we go. Small italics text. It's all my fault, I know. Then clearing tie, most buildings and tokens, and then most warriors. Second, if there are more than 3 warriors on this card and at least 2 footholds on the map, place a warrior at each foothold. So you're bulking up your warriors over here, you want to get them out to the board. Otherwise, battle in a clearing with the most enemy buildings. If unable to battle, move all but 1 expedition warrior from a clearing with the most expedition warriors to an adjacent clearing and battle there. Destination ties, most buildings and tokens, and then most warriors. Defender tie, most buildings and tokens, and then most warriors. So what I've noticed is at this point, now that it's come up a number of times, not anytime, but a lot of the time when the actual promoted side has, for instance, okay, It's just getting ridiculous now. Anytime the promoted side of a hireling has you may move and then you may battle, or place a warrior at each foothold. Not anytime, but a lot of times it'll have that or first. Just kind of you stop there first to see if you check that box and then you're done with your turn. Just I think it's easier to say something like, well, if there's a bunch of moles on here, we should get them onto the map. But still the same overall kind of goal and overall gist of what's going on, in just a different order. On the back, Mole Artisans, the demoted side, is also one of the few, but not the same. This one is one that's just completely different. So whereas before, whenever you craft a card with an item, you may reveal it instead of discarding. At the end of evening, you return revealed cards to your hand. That is a very powerful effect in its own right. However, Mole Artifacts just simply says your crafted items yield an extra victory point. Remember, this is for ROOTbots. You will be using the other card, but the bots never have a hand, and then they don't have to decide which card they keep. So they just get an extra victory point whenever they craft an item, if they have that in their control. All right. So next up is going to be the crows. So first off, setup. The original is place 2 spy warriors, 1 each into 2 clearings of matching suit. Slightly different here. Setup, place 2 spy warriors, 1 each into 2 random clearings of a random matching suit. So roll the Uprising die for the suit, and then roll or assign 0 through 3 to the 4 clearings of that type, and then you have your thing. On to the actual actions. Once per turn, place a spy warrior in each of the 2 clearings with most enemy pieces. Second up, find the clearing with at least 1 spy warrior and with pieces from the highest number of different enemy factions. Compare the number of enemy factions there with the number of warriors that you have on the map. If you have more than 2 more warriors than there are different enemy factions there, battle in each clearing with a spy warrior. Otherwise, score a point for each enemy there, and those enemies must each discard a card. So this is still kind of comes across as the same-ish effect. I have it as the partially filled in circle, telling me that it's kind of the same idea, but just worded differently so it can work for the bots. But yeah, it's a pretty different, the whole like counting up the number of warriors you have versus the number of factions present on the board. It's a pretty different thing here, and I guess the intent is to, build out that network of those Corvid Spies, but that is the promoted side. The demoted side is another that is exactly the same. Simply put, in battle, you deal an extra hit if the battle clearing has buildings or tokens of your faction. So same exact thing as the published version of this hireling. One note about that obviously will vary quite a bit in terms of effectiveness depending on what bot you are playing with, since some of them really don't have that much buildings or tokens, or they have them but they just don't use them that often. But in terms of rules, exact same. All right, we're into the present. Everything up till now has been in expansions before Marauder. Here we are at Marauder with the Flame Bearers. So first up, place 2 banner warriors among any random clearings, even the same. So again, lots of these setups, they're so similar that you've seen me in this outfit sneaking into previous hirelings just to say that the setup is slightly different, and usually that's just to say random. So instead of having a bot decide for itself, or rather you decide for it, you're just going to find a way to randomize the clearings that are available and choose one that way. Aside from that, it's the exact same. If no bearer warriors are on the map, place 2 bearer warriors among any clearings with the most and second most enemy pieces. So that's, also almost the same. I have a partially filled in circle here because it's just giving the bots more direction. Usually if it says place into any clearing, you can't say that for a bot because bots don't have brains. So at the beginning of the turn, in each clearing with any banner warrior, or sorry, I think I've been saying banner, any bearer warriors, remove 1 enemy piece per bearer warrior there. Warriors first. So target tie most pieces and then most victory points. And then the second part of the turn is place 1 bearer warrior at a clearing with or adjacent to another bearer warrior. If unable, play 2 bearer warriors in any 2 different clearings. And then clearing tie is going to be most pieces there. So this one is pretty much the same except adding in those clearing ties and a little bit of clarity on where to start them. As I was saying that though, I do remember in Woodland War Machine, them going through the hirelings and having a good laugh with bearer warrior, because that is super not easy to say. Banner warrior would be a lot easier, but that's not what it's called. It's called bearer warrior. So rat smuggler, that's a way easier name to say. Another filled in circle here, so mostly the same, slightly different. If your ordered card is an item card, battle. So clearing tie, most buildings and tokens, and then most pieces, and defender tie, most buildings and tokens, most pieces, but then also most victory points. So again, same thing. This you can discard a card with an item to move or battle in the regular version. This one, it's not giving you a choice, it's just doing it, and there's no move, there's just battle. So yeah, pretty simple, slight change, nothing major. Moving on to Vault Keepers, our Badgers. So setup, place 2 Keeper Warriors and a Vault building in a random clearing with an open building slot. There you go, replace the word any with random and you're good to go. If no keeper pieces are on the map, place 2 keeper warriors and a vault in a clearing with an enemy building slot. And that's what happens when you take control of it. Clear and tie most enemy pieces. So once per turn, place a vault in a clearing with an empty slot or empty slow that has or is adjacent to a vault. If unable, place a warrior and a vault in any clearing with an empty slot. Clear and tie most enemy pieces. Next up, if unable to battle in at least half the vault clearings, place a keeper warrior at each vault. Otherwise, battle in each clearing with a vault. Defender tie most pieces and then most victory points. Again, it gives you kind of that if you can't battle option first. For instance, if you can't battle in at least half the clearings, place warriors. Otherwise, if you can, battle. And then it gives you some tiebreakers. On the back, Badger Bodyguards is going to give you exactly the same rules. In battle, you ignore the first hit you take. And it does remind you, this does not combine with other effects that let you ignore the first hits you take. I need to look that up. What does that mean? This does not combine with other, as in like they both will then take effect? Like the one rat mood, does that mean you would ignore the first 2? It does not combine with other effects that let you ignore the first hit. I'll have to look that up. I'll put it in the notes down below. When I'm editing this video, I will have looked it up and hopefully have an answer for you, because I don't know. I haven't played with this one yet. All right, we're moving into the land of the pink cards. These are no longer factions that are part of the suite of player factions. So they can be in any game. I don't know why I'm reminding you now, because if you've made it this far, you must know this already, but you can't have a hireling in the game that represents a faction, essentially a color of the factions that's already on the table. So you can't have Forest Patrol and Marquise the Cat. You can't have Vault Keepers and Badgers. However, these last three you can have in any game because they're not player factions yet. That would be interesting, actually, if there's always questions about like what other factions could come up in Root, and Furious Protector, like the big deer meeple, the Porcupines, Highway Bandits, and the Popular Band, if those wound up becoming player factions, and so they took like the reverse path of the other hirelings. Patrick Leader and Cole Wehrle, if you're watching this, first of all, welcome. Second of all, that could be cool. Anyways, Furious Protector set up. You're going to, whoops, my thing's upside down. Place the Protector pawn in any random clearing. So that one didn't replace any with random. It just had both of them. And then a rule, the Protector cannot be battled or removed. Enemies cannot place pieces in its clearing. So that's the same. So beginning of the turn, move the Protector, ignoring rule. Destination tie, highest number of different enemy factions, and then most enemy pieces. So I think up till now, my shorthand has been sufficient. But at this point, I didn't. For those of you who also printed off to be these like sub business card size, I think for factions, it had up arrow number sign F. So the highest number of factions. And then later on is where I had to start using the YW, like your warrior, or YP, your pieces, because that'll come up too. Second, remove one faction warrior of each player, even you, in the Protector's clearing. And do not remove hirelings. So that part is the same. All we really needed to add was some destination rules. On the back, we have Stoic Protector, which is another partially filled circle, so it's mostly the same, but not quite. If the Protector pawn is not on the map, place it in a clearing with your faction pieces. Clearing tie, most number of warriors, and then fewest number of your warriors. So most overall warriors, most enemy warriors, and then fewest number of your warriors. So it can't be battled or removed, same as before. Enemies cannot battle or remove your faction pieces at the Protector for the controller. That's the same as before. And then last one, move the Protector, ignoring rule. Destination tie, any clearing with your pieces, most number of enemy warriors, and then fewest number of your pieces. And then it remove the word must, because everything that's on faction or ROOTbot boards is a must, because the robots don't have any options. They don't have a choice in the matter. So down to the last two. Highway Bandits, our little porcupines here. Set up, place two bandits, one each on a random path without one. So pretty much the same. When an enemy moves on a path with a bandit, they must remove one moving piece or damage one item, if a vagabond or a vagabot. For bots, paths with bandits lose all tiebreakers from moving. So we've seen before, earlier in the video, we talked about those landmarks that essentially like short circuit in a good way the tiebreaker system, so they either are guaranteed most, like highest priority, or lowest priority to get them to the tower or the anvil or whatever. This is interesting. It's the first time we're seeing it happen in the other way, where it essentially loses all tiebreakers to dissuade the bots from using them, because they don't really understand the concept of losing pieces or damaging items, but they do understand the concept of removing something from a potential tiebreaker group. So controller, when you move along a path with a bandit, you may place a warrior in the destination clearing. For bots, paths with bandits win all tiebreakers for moving. So same but opposite, which is a pretty elegant way of kind of encapsulating what players feel when they have the highway bandits as well. Stay away from them when they're not yours, and high-five them as often as possible when they are. All right, so once per turn, place a bandit on a path without one linked to a clearing with your faction pieces. No bandits in supply. Remove one from a path from a clearing with the fewest number of your pieces. Excuse me. And then path tie, clearings with the most of your pieces, and then destinations with the most enemy pieces. So places where they're going to have the most access to your guys, and then also destinations where you're going to bring increased hordes to go take the battle to your enemies. All right, on the back, we have Bandit Gangs. So if no bandit warriors are on the map, place one in a clearing with your faction pieces. Clearing tie the fewest number of your pieces. Bandit warriors cannot be battled in clearings with their controller's faction pieces. So far, pretty much the same. Once per turn. If at least one clearing with a bandit warrior has less than 2 faction warriors, place a faction warrior at each bandit warrior. Otherwise, place a bandit warrior in a clearing with a faction piece of the controller. Clearing tie fewest number of your pieces. So that one's pretty self-explanatory. Going to take advantage of bulking up, getting some free recruit actions essentially while you have access to the bandits. And if you already have a bunch of dudes on the board, you're going to add more bandits to clearings with your pieces. Last hireling here, we got Popular Band, which is going to be another partially filled circle. It's pretty much the same. Setup, place 2 band warriors, each in a different random clearing. If no band warriors are on the map, place a band warrior in a clearing with your faction pieces. Clearing tie most of your faction warriors. Enemies cannot move from a clearing with a band warrior on the same turn they moved into it. That part's the same. The other part just had a destination tie, or clearing tie. Once per turn. First up, choose a clearing with a bandit or a band warrior. Force a faction warrior in each adjacent clearing to move into the chosen clearing. Clearing tie, most number of your buildings, and then the most number of your warriors. Target tie, most number of enemy warriors, but if there are none, you're going to move your warriors instead. Second up, place a band warrior into a clearing. Clearing tie, something that doesn't already have a band, and then has the most amount of your warriors. And then, last but not least, Street Band. Enemies cannot move from a clearing with a band warrior on the same turn they moved into it. Same rules on the other side, same as the regular human version. Then once a turn, place a band warrior in any clearing. Clearing tie, no band warriors, and then the most number of your warriors. Again, almost exactly the same rule, just had to add some tiebreakers in there. Whew. So I am far from having used all the different hireling factions. I'm excited to make that trek, that direction, and I have to extend a humongous thank you to Ehss 7883 and anyone else who makes efforts to make these bot compatible, because that's going to make them a lot easier to get to the table. And easier as in like possible, because this will be a decent amount more of bookkeeping, things to, like plates to keep spinning. You know, I already, as anyone who's watched the channel knows, I strategically place the trait and the difficulty cards around their faction boards based on what actions they affect, because I have a tendency to forget about them. So I'm sure there's going to be a chance that I forget hirelings from time to time, but I think the depth and the interesting decisions they bring are worth that challenge of having to remember them. So again, thank you, Ehss. Thank you for the work and for allowing me to make this video. Like I said, I've seen at least one other take on how to use the ROOTbots with the hirelings, and I will definitely reach out to see if I can make another one of these videos on that, because this is, as I said at the beginning, this is not, even though it's under the banner Winding the Gears, which has traditionally been a Better Bot Project update, which it will be in the future too. Right now, the Better Bot Project direction may take some cues from this. I have no idea what Benjamin's plans are. It might be something completely different. Who knows? But for right now, this is something that's available. Links are down below in the description for anyone who's interested. And yeah, that's all. It's a bit of a longer video because there's a lot of hirelings to go through. Hopefully it was maybe informative. Maybe some of you didn't know that these were available at all. Some of you may have known, but you didn't know what they kind of what went into them. And yeah, maybe some of you already knew, were already playing with them, and just want to, you know, make sure you're doing it right. In any case, thank you for taking a pause, the Give Pause hobby, and hope you're having great games, and we will see you next time.